Hello again, welcome back to another film review. Today's film is Star Trek Beyond, which is the third offering in the rebooted franchise of Star Trek after the initial Star Trek in 2009 and Into Darkness in 2013. It reunites a pretty stellar cast in all honesty. You've got Chris Pine as Captain Kirk, Zoe Saldana as Uhura, Carl Urban as Dr. Bones, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Simon Pegg is Scotty, and there's also plenty of other great actors in this film. Obviously, you've got Anton Yelchin and John Cho, who are Sulu and Chekhov. So, you know, the film really does bring together like a great set of actors, and after 3 films, they've really blended together really well. So the film's plot in this one, it focuses on the first leg of the Enterprise's 5-year mission, taking them into uncharted territory. The Enterprise itself is nearly destroyed, and basically Kirk and the crew are stranded on this remote planet with no means of communication back to Starfleet. So basically, it's just whereby they've got to survive as such, try and find a way off the planet, and basically combat the villain in this film, who is played by Idris Elba. Very good display by Idris Elba in this film. He's barely recognisable because of all the makeup, etc. But he really brings, every film he does, he brings kind of a particular brilliance and like vigour to it. And this is why I always enjoy watching his films or his television programmes like Luther. Luther's a great programme. But yeah, he really brings to it kind of a uniqueness. It's really good that they got him on board as the main villain in this. It was a really good bit of casting. And yeah, it's just, as films go within the Star Trek franchise, it followed on really well, and it kept as much of the old films as it could. But because this particular film was co-written by Simon Pegg, and everyone knows Simon Pegg, he's a really good comedy writer, and he's obviously written films like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, what was the other one he wrote? The one with the alien, Paul. He wrote Paul. So he wrote all of those, and obviously he's got a pedigree for that sort of thing. So he was obviously going to bring a comedic element to the film. Basically, because the film is directed by Justin Lin, who's famous for doing like Fast and Furious films, so it's a lot of action, you know, a lot of car chases, a lot of explosions. So you've got him on one side, then you've obviously got Simon Pegg, like I just said, it's comedic. So it's a blend of those two sorts of films. There's a lot of action, but then there's a lot of comedy on the other side of it as well. It isn't a total comedy film. It still retains the kind of action thriller sort of sci-fi elements to it, but the comedic element that Simon Pegg brings to it is really welcome. The franchise kind of needed a little boot in the right direction, and I think this is the sort of thing that it needed. So yeah, the crew's on a barren planet. They've got no ship, no hope, and you know, the crew of the most famous ship in the Final Frontier managed to kind of pull together, fight off the villains, and find a way to get off the planet, save the day, etc., etc. You know, it wouldn't be a Star Trek film without all of that. So it's kind of the general synopsis of Star Trek films, and that's it. Let's be honest. They have adversity, they overcome adversity, they win. So yeah, it follows that general pattern. Like I say, Simon Pegg co-wrote this, so what does strike you mainly is the subtle move towards humour. But yeah, it's really welcome. Like I've said previous, it makes for a difference. Put it that way, and it's the kind of thing that you want. It's like I said initially, it sticks to its core values, but at the same time, it brings forward and kind of a new element, a little comedy element. And obviously, mainly it is Simon Pegg's character, Scotty, that comes out with those lines. But when you've got people like Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine and such, all coming out of them as well, it blends that cast together so well. And they mould into such a great adaptation of the original cast, you know, when you had like the Shatners and the Nimoys and such. So yeah, it's the comedy's definitely welcome. But yeah, with Pegg as well, because he's a self-confessed nerd and he loves Star Trek and Star Wars, his jokes are funny, but at the same time they're well-timed and they relay back to the story perfectly. It's so we're having him at the helm of writing. It makes sense for him to have written this film. It's definitely the lightest of the three films, naturally, because of that element, but it does really benefit from it, and yeah, it makes it a lot more interesting. One particular favourite part of the film of mine was while trying to escape this particular planet, the crew are forced to play classic music, which is ironically sabotaged by the Beastie Boys, which many people might remember was that in the first Star Trek film, when Chris Pine's younger self is stealing a car at the very beginning of the film, the actual song that he's playing in the car is sabotaged by Beastie Boys, and as soon as it comes on in this film, the camera pans over to Captain Kirk and he kind of gives a little sly nod to it as if to say he knows what it is. So yeah, that was a really good nod back to the first film, and throughout the film there are little nods back to the second film as well, so it really does link together pretty well. The plot itself, it does come across as slightly clunky sometimes. The action sequences turn to the old idea of kind of shout something loud and blow stuff up, which doesn't always work. I mean, obviously in certain films it does, but with Star Trek it is more of a film that you want it based around the plot, and in large parts this film is, but when it does have those action sequences, sometimes you do kind of feel like Justin Lin was like, I don't know what to do, shout something and blow something up. So, but yeah, it wasn't a major drawback, it's just one of those things I kind of observed. But yeah, as far as me personally, I think the film had plenty of positives to outweigh the negatives. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, I think it was slightly weaker than Into Darkness. I think Into Darkness is the best of the three, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a good film. I'd still give this 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a superb delve back into the adventures of the crew of the Enterprise and or the crew of the Franklin. Little nod to what happens in the film. And yeah, it's definitely set up for the next film, which is the actual title for it is just Star Trek 14 at the moment, because it'll be the 14th film. But yeah, no, really set it up well. Obviously, the core cast will return for the next film, minus, unfortunately, Anton Yelchin, who played Pavel Chekhov, who sadly died earlier in 2016. I think it was only about a month and a half ago. I believe it was in June. Unfortunately died because the car that he had reversed back onto him because it was a problem with the car or something. And yeah, unfortunately he died. So it would be his last film I believe he's made. I'm pretty sure he didn't make any in between finishing Star Trek and Star Trek coming out. So it's a fitting tribute to him. He does have quite a substantial role in this film. But yeah, it's sad because obviously he's a very young actor. He's very talented. Had a lot of, just had a lot in front of him. Basically, it's like anyone who unfortunately passes away at a young age. It's very sad because they had a lot of aspirations and dreams that they probably want to chase, but they never get that chance. And yeah, it's just sad to think that he won't be in future films. And obviously, it's a huge loss. And I'm sure the Star Trek family will honour him in the future films some way, dedicate the film to him possibly. But yeah, he'll be a big loss because he was a major part of those films, and I think the Star Trek universe had grown to love him. So yeah, that's kind of a down note. But other than that, the film was really good. Like I say, 4 out of 5 stars, and I recommend anyone go and see it or get it on DVD, Blu-ray when it comes out. Anyone who's a sci-fi fan will enjoy it, or anyone who's just a casual fan will enjoy it. You know, it's just one of those films you can really sit down and enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, let me know. If you haven't, don't care. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. So yeah.